So I am very excited today to have Daniel Scranton with us to share about his channeling experiences. He's an amazing channel, a verbal channel. So I've experienced him both in private sessions and doing courses with him around channeling. He is based in Hawaii and he channels a variety of collectives of different beings. And he also uses an amazing toning process that gets him into channeling states, and he uses that also with light language. So I really want to hear all about how you started and how you got to the point of having light language as well coming through you.
Okay, hello everybody. The channeling part, that's sort of just, everything basically just sort of happened. And I was lucky that I didn't need to go out and take a lot of classes to make things happen. It was just like I felt the channeling starting to emerge within me because I would be doing Reiki on people and things started moving by themselves, like my hands moved like this by themselves over the body. And then my head started to do this while I was working on people. And then my lips started moving. And when my lips started moving, I said, oh, channeling, I know about that. Like that's what this could be, or I could be moving into this. So I just kept focusing. And I also had a really cool experience happen in the middle of the night where I got this huge download of energy, and it was like pure ecstasy moving through my body. And it made me so much more interested in going within myself to get that feeling again. And I knew it was somehow connected with aliens too, because I had like a whole communication happening with them while it was happening.
And when you say aliens, did you have a sense of who that was at that time?
No, I wasn't even interested in aliens at all at that time. So I was completely unaware of who it could have been. Yeah, but they were definitely working.
Yeah. What was the feeling? You said you felt the feeling. What was the feeling that you felt when you?
Well, it was like having 100 orgasms at once.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can equate it to, because it was that good, and and nothing else has ever in my life compared to that kind of feeling that I was experiencing. So that happened about 8 months before I started verbally channeling, and all I was doing in between that time period and the beginning of the channeling was focusing on going within myself, raising my vibration. I was already meditating every day for over 10 years, so I just kind of amped it up a bit.
Yeah.
And then I was told by Abraham of Abraham-Hicks that this was something that was happening to me, that when I asked about it, they said, yes, continue, keep going. You've run into a bit of resistance to it within your body, because I was getting like this, but nothing was coming out. And then I would sit with people and I would be like, okay, get your questions ready. I'm going to see if I can do this. And I'd just be like,
yeah, it's very weird. I've watched the videos. It looks painful, but it's not.
Well, I've changed since then to the point where, so if you see a video of me from like 5 years ago, I'm a different channel than I was then, but it was intense, not painful, but there was definitely some tension especially in the beginning. But now I'll still move, but I'll move more like this when I'm channeling. It's very smooth and like I'm much more in tune with the energy. I think your body has to get used to it.
Yeah, say a little bit more about that, actually. I know we'll get on to more of the other parts with the toning and the light language, but I noticed exactly that, having just watched this morning one of your earlier videos versus the one you did recently with the light language with the undertone, which is really great. And it was like you learned to let that energy flow through. So for someone that's learning to start channeling, resistance is such a big thing. And I know a lot of people have said to me, I can feel it coming and I don't want to let it out. Like, what would you say to them about that resistance and moving through that?
Practice. You gotta, it's something like when you have to feel a negative emotion, you don't want to do it, but it's in you and it's got to come out, and you just got to sit with it. It's the same thing. So it's like processing an emotion. You've got to practice. You've got to just move right through. See, my question for Abraham when I asked was, am I trying too hard? Because why, like what is this dry heaving experience if maybe I shouldn't be doing this? But they told me what I'll tell people now, which is, no, it's something you're supposed to be doing. It's just you've got resistance to work through, and the only way to get through it is to go through it. And the only way to do that is to practice and know that it really isn't about effort and trying. It's about relaxing and receiving. It's about opening yourself up, being as much in a state of surrender as you can be to the process, and then just sort of letting it happen. And that, when we talk about my experience with light languages coming through, that will become really evident as to how that happened.
Yeah, so tell us about that moving. So you were telling me before about how you started with the toning. Tell us about that.
Well, I went from channeling verbally, so I was already speaking in English, and a lot of the words that I would channel when I was going into the channeling state were sing, ring, and ringing and singing. So in various combinations, I would just rapid fire be like sing, ring, ring, sing, singing, ringing, ringing, singing, over and over. And so finally I went and took voice lessons with a teacher whose studio is called Singing for Your Soul. Singing for Your Soul. And so she knew exactly what I was talking about when I told her, yeah, I was told to come do this. I just, that's what they want me to do. So I was there for a few months maybe. And we were just working like a normal teacher-student relationship. So the toning didn't come till like a year or so after I had started working with her. And the light language came in May of 2011. So I'd only been channeling verbally for 6 months. And I was on the massage table with this massage therapist who I'd been seeing pretty consistently at that point for, say, 3.5 months, and I had developed feelings for her. So I'd be lying there on the massage table. I was already doing like all these movements while she's massaging me, and she was tuned in. She was a Wiccan and a clairvoyant, and she knew what was going on in the room. But then all of a sudden, so she accepted me as a channel. She knew that that's what I did and everything. But for me to all of a sudden start speaking this language while being massaged, I thought it was even a little weird given those circumstances. But I just found it very interesting that these light language, the very beginning of this light language for me, which I didn't even know what a light language was. All I knew is that I'm lying on a massage table speaking these words that don't have any meaning. And I got horribly sick that night, to the point where I was so ill that I felt like I wanted to die. And the other interesting thing about the first day that I spoke light language was that there were all these billboards around LA from this televangelist guy saying that May 21st was going to be the end of the world. So it was really funny how it happened. And every massage after that continued with the light language that I went to her for like another 7 months before I finally stopped seeing her because she had a boyfriend, and it was just too hard.
So do you think you're actually married now though to a aren't you? That's the name there is married Chris. So I love that you've got 2 channels together. That must be very interesting.
Yeah. She's I mean, I feel like she's more tuned in than I am. She tells me all sorts of crazy stuff that she gets, and yeah.
But So you were probably getting that light language then, you know, in that massage process, was probably doing some really big clearing for you and upgrades, you know, how that works. Did you have a sense at the time that that's what it was doing, or did you feel the effects of it? No.
No, all I knew, what was interesting about that language was the words all had very similar structure. So there'd be like an N, a K sound in most words, and vowels. So Nuka was one that I channeled so often that I eventually, like a month later, had kittens. I didn't have them, my cat had kittens, and I named one of them Nuka and another one Nika, because those were two words I said over and over. Anakana, Nikana, Nukana. Those are very, you know, like variations of the same, you know, the lexicon was very small. The words were very distinct sounding. Now when I channel light language, there's a lot more like little sounds in there, and it's not so concrete with like word sounds all the time. Sometimes you make out like a word and you can say, oh, that, like if I had to write that down, I could spell it out. But other times it's more like sound or codes or something that are coming through, and they're different all the time.
Yeah, I have that
too. I can channel for you like 6 different light languages in a row without thinking, without like trying to, you know, like, because the beautiful thing about channeling light languages that's different from channeling in English is that I don't have to worry about it making sense. So I feel like I'm much more free in those moments to just let loose and let it go. And it doesn't, you know, even with the tones, like even when I'm toning, which are also channeled, by the way, I still think as I'm doing it about how pretty it sounds, you know? Yeah. So there's still that, but with light language, it's like completely liberating because it doesn't have to sound, it doesn't have to make sense, doesn't have to sound pretty to have an impact. And, you know, from what I'm told, they are having impacts on people's lives, so.
Yes, I know, I totally relate to that. Like sometimes the light language that comes through, it's such a strong energy stream. I mean, you can barely get the sounds out fast enough sometimes. And I have the same experience where it changes from, it could be little clicky sounds, could be sometimes there's that chanting, all the rest of it. So with the...
Sometimes it sounds like singing.
Yeah. Absolutely, and song as well. So your toning, I'd love for you, would you give us a demonstration of your toning? Because you get a lot of the overtones in that work. Hear all the other harmonics, which is, and that really has a powerful effect. Even just toning without any other light language is a very powerful thing. So, and I love that you did the toning. You had this undertone that kept going, and you were doing the light language on top. That was really, I'd love if you could give us a demonstration.
I'll do that for you,
and just that said, I guess you have to, do you feel like you really need to have an intention, I guess, like what are we doing with this light language? Like we're calling in a...
It's a good idea to do that. Yeah, I think so.
So given this is aimed at a group of people who are in emerging channels, could you offer something maybe that would support them, like whatever you feel would be most aligned for that?
Well, first I'll do a toning, and I'll just tell everybody that the tones are channeled too. So whenever I bring in a group that I'm going to channel, they always channel tones before they come through and say greetings or we are here or whatever. And the very first ones to do it were the creators. They're the ones I have been working with the longest, and they're the ones who are telling me to sing and ring and sing. And then when I got those voice lessons after a year or so of meeting with Kimberly, she started to take me through vocal warm-ups that involved toning. And from there, I was also already interested in toning because of another channel named Wendy Kennedy, who brings through light languages and tone, like channeled for hours about the power of sound and tones. And so I heard one of her channelings about overtones and how powerful they are. So then I had that intention to bring through overtones. But Kimberly didn't know how to teach me how to do it because she didn't know how to do it herself. Now she can, but at the time, all I had to do was to put forth the intention, and the next thing I knew, like within a week, the creators started to come through with the tones instead of they were channeling the sing and ring, and then they were saying that light language before coming in, and then eventually they switched to the tones. And so this is them kind of getting me and whoever I'm channeling for on the same page. And I'm told, so as far as the intention goes, I'm told that these tones can put someone in the channeling state just by listening to them. So if that's someone's intention who's listening to this, then just sit back and relax and receive the multi-dimensional effects of these tones that are also infused with the intention and the overtones to put you in the channeling state.
Great, sounds great. Thank you.
So I'll just do one long one. This is when I channel the creators. This is how we start. Yes! Yes! Yes!
So powerful. And it's so interesting watching your face because I can see how that, and it's like it's moving you, you know, it's really, you're not making those movements. It's like this energy.
So I can, now that I've done it enough, I can mimic it. Like I can just go. It's easy for me to just do it. But then at a certain point, I wonder, well, once I start, are the creators being a part of it too? You know, like how much of it is me doing it and how much do I get help as soon as I start, you know?
Yes. And say a little bit more about the different collectives that you work with, because that's shifted a lot. You started with the creators and then the Arcturians and the Pleiadians have come in more. Say a little bit about that, because people like to kind of know, even though not everyone will have that access to one particular stream or collective.
Yeah, well, when I was raised on Seth, and not really raised, but you know, from age 30, Seth and Bashar and Abraham. So I thought it was always like one channel, one being, or one collective. And so when the creators came through me, I only channeled them for the first 3 years, and then I got into Wendy Kennedy and Nora Harold, who are two of the people I worked with recently on the channel panel in LA, which also had Bashar and Lee Harris and a bunch of other people that I'm like, oh my God, am I really working with these people? So
I know you're up there with them.
So they bring through Yeshua, a fairy named Kalyandra, who I named one of my cats Kalyandra, one of those kittens that was born, that was in the same litter as Nuka and Nika. I've got Kalyandra the fairy over here. That's one of the beings Nora channels, and they just channel, you know, Syrian High Command and the Antarians and all these different beings, Pleiadians, of course. The Pleiadians are the mainstay for both Nora and Wendy, but they bring through all these other beings. So that's when I started to realize that I could do that too. And so I have this love for nature and being in the woods, especially. So when I'm in the woods, sometimes I feel the presence of fairies, and that's how my relationship with Ophelia, the fairy, started. It was just walking in the woods, and first she would come through me with tones, and then I channeled her in the woods for the first time, and then I channeled her for a friend who, sort of like an experiment. Like, let's see how we can sort of broaden our horizons with the channeling. And so I brought through Ophelia, and so I started channeling her instead of the creators for the daily message that I bring through for probably over a year. And then I just was curious about who else I could bring through, So like I brought through the Hathors without trying to bring through the Hathors. Like I wasn't reaching and saying I want to channel Hathors. They just came through me. Archangel Michael came through me at a Nora Herald retreat that I was attending, where she was channeling Michael, and Michael said, "Anybody else want to?" And I was like, "It's not going to be in English." But so the first time I channeled Michael, it was like a light language.
Oh wow, fantastic!
And then someone asked me to channel Archangel Gabriel for them, and I didn't think about whether Gabriel's a male or a female, but Gabriel came through in a female voice and still comes through me. Like if you heard a recording of it, you'd say, "Oh, that's a woman channeling channeling Archangel Gabriel," but no, it's me channeling Archangel Gabriel, who apparently wants to come through me in a female sound.
Yeah, or I guess a more feminine energy. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Like Archangel Michael he has a very sexy voice when you tell Archangel Michael. I have to say, I was like, oh yeah. You were like nice. Yeah, and then I heard you channeling Kuan Yin, and it was a very different, more feminine.
Kuan Yin, of course, is female, so
I guess they're bringing in the voices, the change in vibration in the voice and the pitch in the voice, like that's probably reflecting, like if you were doing them in light language, it would have that certain frequency, like our human voice and our human language. You're limited just to changing the pitch of your voice really to reflect that energy because you're speaking. Yeah. Whereas like you say, that light language, you have that freedom to just really encompass all of those energies in other sorts of sounds, and you're not restricted to just the words, the expression of it.
Right.
Have you ever channeled Ophelia with fairy light language versus the verbal channeling?
Have I ever done it?
Yeah, have you done Ophelia? Because that fairy language is very high and giggly. Like I've not done it much myself, but when I've done it, it's like I've had this grin plastered on my face and I can't get it off. And some people have a very strong connection with that fairy energy and will tend to channel more of that energy. So it's just interesting. So, but I did see you channel the Arcturians with light language, though. Yeah. Tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, it's just an intention that I set. So I'll just say, I want to channel an Arcturian light language or a Pleiadian light language, and then whatever happens. And then when I do recordings that I put on my website of different light language transmissions with an intention, that's all I do is I say, okay, this is, like I did one yesterday, this one is going to be about helping people achieve more self-love. So I just go in, and then and of course the tone of the light language that comes through in that case is different from, let's say, a light language where the intention is for you to access more power.
Yes.
It's going to sound different. Just like when I was getting massaged, and there were times when my tone that I was speaking in would change a lot depending on like where she was standing relative to me, like whether she's down by my feet or up at my shoulders makes a big difference. So.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe, I don't want to keep putting you on the spot for demonstrations, but given that we're talking to people who are, and now you do classes too with people who are, opening to their channeling abilities, and you do a light language, course as well. What do you think is the major hurdle for people? And maybe we could do a transmission around that. Would it be fear, out?
Yes.
What do you think? What's your experience with working with people?
My opinion is that the hurdle that people reach when it comes to channeling is there's something about it's doubt. It's like the belief that who am I to do this? Like, who am I to talk for Jesus Christ? I mean, come on, like, seriously, we're not raised to think of ourselves as being anywhere near those beings in terms of, like, worthiness. So for someone to be, even, and this is very fundamental to everything that we're trying to achieve here in shifting our consciousness. It's about trusting our intuition and trusting ourselves. And when we think, like, when we see a light in the sky and we think, oh, I wonder if that was Arcturians, like, yes, that was Arcturians, because why else would you think, I wonder if that was Arcturians, unless, you know what I mean? So it's like, when a person is in that state, and because I'm able to get people into a semi-trance state pretty easily when I teach them. But whether they speak or not, I think depends largely on the person, and what degree of confidence they have, how much comfort they have with themselves, how used to being in that state of trust they are. Because if they're not, then they're probably just going to sit there and not let it through.
Yeah.
So that's one of the beauties of toning and light language, is that you can let anything through. No one can say, like, oh, you're just making that up. Especially with tones, like, there's this power with toning to clear a person's throat chakra and remove blockages from lifetimes where they've been persecuted for speaking their truth or for being a channel or whatever. So that's a good place for people to start if they want to. If you feel energy in you and you know that energy is powerful and it can be expressed if you let it, then just make a vowel sound and hold it. Just say O, but hold it, or A, or or E, and you can go in different. I'm so bad with, like, musical terms, but you can go, like, higher. You can do, like, a higher E or a lower E, and you play around with it. You can do O or you can do oo, things like that with the different vowel sounds.
Yes, yeah, just playing around and opening yourself up, letting that frequency come through however it wants to. So would you like to just kind of wrap us up, offer us a light language transmission from any one of those beautiful collectives so we know they're really supporting us to move into this kind of soul-to-soul communication, to help perhaps with clearing that doubt? And I guess the other thing is that fear, I don't know if you ever had that fear that you might be bringing through something that might harm.
I've never had that myself, so
no, me neither. But
I know that fear is out there, though, and I know why it exists. But I've been fortunate enough to never be afraid, because, for one thing, I can't do this unless I raise my vibration. So if you raise your vibration, those beings don't have access to you. It's incompatible. They're not. They attach themselves to people who are in a fear state. Or so if you have fears about doing it, then you've got to work on the processing of those fears first. You don't want to, like, say, okay, I'm afraid of doing this, but I'm going to open myself up anyway, because then you are sort of bringing in that same energy. So it's tough, but
I mean, for me, it's always the first thing is you have to work on that higher self connection, you know, until you're able to really be in that higher self connection, you're not really going to be open to allowing that through. And like you say, once you're in that state, you're in that higher vibration. And so you don't do any kind of protection, or you're very, you're very conscious these are loving energies that are coming through. I certainly feel that too. But,
no, I don't. I think protection is like, I'm trying to think of an analogy, but if you were to create a bubble around yourself, then is that bubble keeping only the bad things out, or is it keeping everything out? Is it semi-permeable, or is it completely impenetrable? So you don't want to be afraid, because then if you're afraid of like connecting with anybody or anything, then that there's a chance that you will keep the higher frequency beings away as well. Or they'll never be away, because they're always with us, but you won't have as much access.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't believe in it.
And for us actually as humans to actually really start to believe that we are loved, to love ourselves, to trust that there are all these loving beings there who really want to help us and support us, and certainly for me, the light language has really helped me to really trust that, because you feel it in your heart, you feel it, don't you? You're saying, like 100 orgasms, like it's a pure love life force that comes through you. So please offer us, that would be lovely. Thank you.
To help people
really just feel really, allow that to come through them, just to really feel trusting in that. Oh, that was so powerful. I was having trouble stopping myself from doing light language. I just started the tone and like sitting on my hands, and I could really feel that activating and unlocking things in my whole chakra field. So beautiful. Good. Thank you so much, Daniel. So if people want to find out more about you, best to go to your website, danielscranton.com.
Danielscranton.com has the most recent quotes that I've channeled, which I normally do every day. Right on the homepage, there's like the first or the last 10 or 15 on there. And then if they want to work with me, it's easy to just figure out how to navigate the site. It's not very complicated.
It's great. You are prodigious. I mean, those daily they're just beautiful. It's so beautiful every day to read some channeled guidance and support from the Arcturians, the creators, the Pleiadians. It's really fantastic. So and private sessions are amazing too. I've had a session or two with you, and my husband described it as, when he had a session with the creators, it's like speaking to God. So it was like asking questions of God. So that's what's available. So I really appreciate you doing this today, Daniel. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So, yeah, and I will be encouraging them all to follow you and get those beautiful daily inspirations. All right. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.